If you ever visit Istanbul, you'll find it hard to miss the various extraordinary mosques built by the Ottomans. Dotted throughout the city, the most famous of them all is the Sultan Ahmed Mosque, better known as the Blue Mosque. From its numerous delicate minarets on the outside, to the beautiful designs and colours used on the inside, everything about the Blue Mosque says architectural masterpiece. However, even though it was built at a time when the Ottoman Empire was at its peak, the circumstances in which the Blue Mosque was constructed in were far from favourable, and may even point to the eventual decline of the great Ottoman Empire. In the years leading up to the construction of the mosque, the Ottomans had fought a devastating and inconclusive war against their traditional European enemies, the Habsburgs. And even as the mosque was being built, the Ottomans were fighting a long war with the Safavid Persians. But the young Sultan who was in charge at the time, Ahmed I, wanted to leave his own legacy behind by creating a beautiful piece of architecture which had his name. And so, construction began in 1609. There had already been some small minor palaces in the area that had to be removed in order to make way for this new grandiose monument. Even more significantly, the site of the new mosque coincided with certain parts of the old Byzantine hippodrome, as well as the Byzantine Great Palace, which had already fallen into disrepair since the time of the Fourth Crusade. This serves to highlight the civilizational continuity between the Byzantines and the Ottomans. But there's also a slightly more antagonistic motivation behind the construction of the new site. I mean, all you have to do is look across the Blue Mosque and you'll figure out why that is. Because you'll see the Hagia Sophia standing there in all of its momentous glory. And this was undoubtedly a source of inspiration behind the construction of the Blue Mosque, and therefore it can be seen as an attempt to compete with a rival civilization, namely Christendom in this instance. The job of chief architect was left to a man named Sedefkar Mehmet Agha, who tried to emulate his teacher, the greatest Ottoman architect, Mimar Sinan, in aiming for tremendous size, splendor, and magnificence. One important detail to bear in mind about the monument is that it's not just a mosque. It's actually a kulye, which is a complex of buildings with various functions. For instance, Sultan Ahmed has a madrasa, a hospice, and contains the tomb of Sultan Ahmed himself. The entire building was completed in 1617. It was kitted out with 6 pencil-long minarets, which apparently caused some controversy at the time because the Great Mosque of Mecca also had the same amount. So the Sultan decided to build an extra one there. If you were wondering where the name Blue Mosque comes from, we have to look at the 20,000 handmade ceramic tiles that are inside of the mosque. Equipped with about 50 separate designs, most of the colors are green, turquoise, and bluish hues, hence the name. The motifs of many of these splendid tiles include fruits, roses, and trees, with some people thinking that this is an attempt to evoke images of a plentiful paradise. The mosque was also fitted with colourful windows, which were originally a gift from the Venetian government to the Sultan. The walls are inscribed with the names of the Khalifs, the 4 Rashidun Khalifs, as well as verses from the Quran. One interesting thing about the Sultan Ahmed Mosque is that there is an iron chain which hangs in the court entrance on the western side of the mosque. The whole point behind this was that only the Sultan was allowed to ride in on horseback, and because of the chain, he would have to lower his head in order not to get hit. This was a symbolic gesture ensuring the humility of the ruler before Allah. But despite the grandeur of this amazing building, its construction was somewhat of a bad omen for the future of the Ottoman Empire. Typically, Ottoman rulers would be expected to build beautiful monuments after they had done very well in a war, whereby the monument would be paid for through war booty. But as we saw right at the beginning, the Ottomans had not been doing so well in wars against the Safavid Persians and the Habsburgs. And there was even an outcry at that time when Sultan Ahmed announced that he was going to build this great big monument because he had not won a war. Above everything else, it signified that the Ottoman sultans were getting soft. Now what I mean by that is that they were losing track of what had gotten them to the preeminent position that they enjoyed by the beginning of the 17th century, which was discipline, which was toughness, which was organization. Resting on the laurels of all the military conquests that were achieved by Mehmed Fatih, Selim I, and Suleiman the Magnificent, the Ottoman Sultan now rarely even went on a military expedition. And the royal practice of fratricide, which is when the Ottoman Sultan dies and his sons subsequently fight each other to the death for the throne, was also abandoned during the reign of Ahmed I. Now I know that sounds like a good thing, the fact that it was abandoned, but it feeds into what we were talking about before, about the rulers becoming more complacent. Because you see, when you have to play a zero-sum game in order to get to the throne, it is much more likely that once you get there, you appreciate what it is that you are fighting for, against your closest kin, your brothers. And all of this softness was embodied by Sultan Ahmed when he decided to build the Blue Mosque. Although he had not earned the right to build such an opulent structure by winning a war, Sultan Ahmed decided to forego tradition and do so anyway. But whilst the lack of strong leadership was certainly a cause for Ottoman decline, it could not have been the sole reason for it. A variety of other factors had to be involved in such a momentous and colossal development as the decline of an empire. This includes things like the economic consequences of the Age of Discovery, where European countries engaged in overseas exploration, the military strengthening of the Ottomans' rivals, and the logistical strain of having an empire that spanned 3 continents. But I'll make a separate video on all of those factors and why the Ottomans declined in the near future. For now, thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video if you guys enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe. I have some great videos coming out soon. Finally, I want to say a very big thank you to my Patreons for their generous support. If you guys want to support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description to this video. Until next time, peace.